My name is Max Perez. I am a heroin addict. I am 31 years old. My sobriety date is April 30th of 2015, so I have a little over 5 years sober. Addiction sucked, for sure. And I grew up in a dysfunctional household like most of us do. So I got started young, so my life sucked pretty bad before I was an adult, as far as age-wise states. I remember being a homeless heroin addict in Phoenix. In the summer, I was homeless. I was also homeless in the wintertime. And I couldn't stop using heroin, right? And I would rob people. I would steal from my family. I would go against my values and my morals that I thought that I had, right? And it's like fighting yourself, right? Knowing you get that gut-wrenching feeling in your stomach that you shouldn't be doing this, and you do it anyway. And heroin gave me the ability to look past that kind of stuff, and it brought me to some pretty dark places. I remember I never really panhandled, so I would have people do it for me, and then I would just give them dope. But I just remember, actually one time when I was homeless, it was like Halloween time. I think I was like shooting up bath salts at the time, and I remember my phone had died. So I'm in people's front yards with their Halloween lights charging my cell phone. Not really having anywhere to be or anybody to call or trying to figure out anything, man. And I remember that sucked. That was a little bit before I got sober the first time, and that sucked, man. And it just keeps bringing you down and bringing you down. And I remember just trying to chase that first high that we get, right? I remember that first high is magical, and then nothing bad happened, right? And I used drugs and alcohol for a long time without anything bad happening, and then my life started to suck, and you start getting consequences for getting high, and people in my life didn't really want to be around me anymore, and they were, had I grew up with a family full of drug addicts and alcoholics, so they were the ones that were sober that had their lives together, put up some pretty firm boundaries to keep me, to helpfully get me to my bottom, faster than it would if they were enabling me. So I remember I would just show up at my parents' house randomly, to get some sleep, eat a little bit of food, and then get out of there, and then I started stealing stuff and doing that, and then when I would come, they would, talk to me about where my life had gone, and like the last time that I was there, they're like, you can't come back here again if you don't. We'll help you try and get sober, but you can't come back here if you don't. Like, just can't be a part of our lives, all of that, and that was a hard pill to swallow. But yeah, man, addiction for me is just, I have this vast empty hole that I keep shoving drugs or women or money, or I think that's going to be the end all be all to my happiness, and it never works, and the hole just gets bigger the longer I do that stuff, man, and the further away I am from what I'm trying to achieve as far as having happiness, right? And I thought I would find it in a bottle or a pipe or a needle, and it never made me happy, man, and I was never able to find it, so I was just trying to fill that empty void of despair, I remember, and that's the thing about my disease, is it tells me like I'm not good enough, I'll never amount to anything, and I'm a piece of shit, and I believed that for a long time, and that's what my addiction tells me on a daily basis, even being sober, right? But today I know those thoughts aren't true. But yeah, that's what my mind was telling me from even long before I picked up a drink or a drug. That's what my mind would tell me. So once I found drugs and alcohol, that was the solution to shut that off and make my mind quiet, And it just always gets worse every time, and I know that, but it's not enough to keep me from going back to it, right? So yeah, so that's kind of what addiction looks like to me, is, being alone on the streets, getting high, not having any meaning or purpose or direction in life, and existing, and that is it,
Did you ever think you'd lose your life? Like you ever think you'd die?
Oh yeah, plenty of times I thought I would die. I definitely thought I would die a lot. I mean, I've overdosed before. I've taken enough pills to hope that I wouldn't wake up in the morning. And I thought that was, I was, when I made it past 21, I was like, I made it past 21, right? And then I got to 25, and I'm like, damn, I'm 25, right? And then now I'm 31, and I never thought I would make it to my 30s. Like, that's just, So, and for me, I'm a hope to die junkie, right? I was an IV user for many years. My mom died from complications of an overdose, so that was like my driving force. That was one of the things that kept me sick, is that, and that really put me into like I was already on a road to destruction, and that just catapulted me into really not caring whether I lived or I died, and hoping and just waking up the next day wondering, why am I still here? And then I go through the day, get loaded, whatever I can get. At the end of the day, try and do as much as I could and not wake up. And it was just that cycle that I kept living in, and not knowing why. A lot of us have issues with God or higher power when we get sober. And for me, I was being punished because I was worthless or whatever, and just wishing that I would die. And for some reason, I didn't. And that just kept happening over and over and over again, and I didn't have a purpose. And when I got sober, it has given me a purpose of why I know why that I didn't die all those times that I tried to. But yeah, I thought I was going to die a lot. I hoped to die, and today I hope not to die. So it's the opposite end of that spectrum, and today my life is blessed, and I live a pretty good life. I had relapsed, so I was sober for 3 years, relapsed for 6 months, and I've been back for a little over 5 years. And both times that I'm a hope to die drug addict, so I have no intentions on ever getting sober, because I don't want to feel, I don't want to deal with all those feelings. So the turning point for me, I originally moved back to New York, where I'm from, to get sober. And my sister's a normie. She would, smoke weed and drink on the occasion. And she took Xanax like a normal person, like as prescribed on the bottle. I never knew how to do that, right? So I started stealing pills and drinking and smoking. And obviously she didn't want me living in her house doing that, because my intention was to get sober there, and I'm still doing the same shit. And I was sleeping on a futon in her little basement apartment in Albany, New York. And I remember she's like, you can't live here anymore. So I was completely content. I never lived in Albany. I'm from a different part of New York, but I packed my one bag that had my entire life in it, and I was like, all right, I'm just going to go down to the homeless shelter and keep getting loaded, and things will be good. And she's like, no, I'm not going to let you do that. You go stay with my friend Evan until we can figure out what to do with you. So I remember I was just walking down the street. It was October in New York. It was snowing. It was cold. And I just had a thought that crossed my mind. It's like, is this where you pictured your life being when you're like 14, 15 years old? Like, my addiction was heavy then, but like, is this where you picture your life being? Stealing from your family, robbing people, fucking over everybody that you know? And like, at that moment, just that, I could have thought that thought 1,000 times before. It just made sense, and that's what kind of led me on the path, right? And obviously I veered from the path and I got loaded again. And the second time, same thing. It was a 12-step call. My brother, this other guy, Paul, in the program that was around when I first got sober, they did a 12-step call on me for like 3 hours, or trying to get me to go to detox. And I do what we do. Oh, I'll go on the weekend. Oh, I got to work tomorrow. I can't miss work. All these excuses of why I couldn't do it, because I wanted to continue getting loaded. My brother started crying. He grabbed my hand. He started praying, and I just couldn't hold it together. I was like, you're killing me right now. It was like my disease and myself were battling. Like, I just wanted to keep getting high so bad, but I knew that there was a better way of life, and I was just battling back and forth, and I still said no, right? I was like, no, I'm not going to go. So they're like, all right, well, you're high, so give us your keys, otherwise we'll call the cops, and we'll just tell them that you're driving around high on heroin. And so I walked out, gave them my keys, and I closed the door, and as soon as that door closed, I just had that thought again. It was just, give up. That was it. Just give up. And I probably thought that thought again thousands of times before, but for some reason at that moment in time, it made sense to me to just give up. and stop doing what I had to do. And all I had to do was just say yes. So I remember I turned around, I was like, all right, I'll go to detox. And that was a turning point for me. It's just a thought, man, and it just made sense at that point in time. It's crazy to think back on it, and I don't ever want to forget. And some people have these profound moments or like these life-changing events that happen. And for me, it was just as simple as give up, and it made sense at that time. So that's really what started me on the journey again. Human connection is super important to recovery. For me, I was always on the outside looking in, whether I was in a room full of people or by myself or around my family. I just thought that I'd never fit in and no one really understood what I was going through. And I didn't really care about what I thought I didn't care about other people, and come to find out I cared a lot about not having people in my life to talk to or be a part of anything. And 12-step meetings kind of really force you to be a part of if you're around the right people, right? I remember it wasn't optional when I first got sober for me to do things. It was, Harold was one of the guys that definitely forced my hand in doing a lot of things that I really didn't want to do. I remember we were at a men's retreat and he's like, you see all these guys out here? There's probably like 50 dudes out smoking cigarettes. He's like, I want you to go up to each one and introduce yourself and tell them who you are. And I was like, oh, Max, nice to meet you. And I went all around, right? And then after meals, there's tons of plates. He's like, you see all these guys that are done eating? I want you to go pick up their plates and clean up their plates. So I did that. And I've been to like 10 of those retreats, and I still do it every time after I'm done eating and I see plates around. I just ask guys if I can get their plates, right, and being of service. And I got forced into helping and connecting with people, but that's really the where the magic happens for me, And I get to show up and be of service, and I get to build connections with new guys that come in and that are broken like me, that don't want to talk to anybody and don't think that they belong or don't think that they need to be there. And I get to show these dudes that what someone showed me, right? And that's the biggest thing, I think, as well. Some dude just in his free time gave away his time, right? And what I've learned is that's the most valuable thing now, is like, I can't get my time back, right? So that is probably the most important thing that I should be doing with my time, is helping other people and building those connections with other people. And I do it begrudgingly sometimes, where I feel like I have better things to do, but at the end of the day, I really just need to connect with people, and I have a close group of men around me that hold me accountable, that I meet with and I talk to and I get real with, right? I don't expect everyone to just tell a random stranger their life problems, but that's kind of what sponsorship is. But once you build that relationship, it kind of gives you the opportunity to freely speak what's really going on in your life with other people. And in turn, they might share some of the shit that they're going through that they may not want to share, right? We get vulnerable with each other and we talk to each other. We connect on a different level than I have ever in my life, I was always pointing out why people are different. This guy's a douchebag, he's dressed like this, or he's, and I'm prejudging these people even before I meet them, right? And not really understanding or caring about what they're going through in that current moment or what they've been through. And like now I genuinely have an interest for what's going on with people and trying to build that connection and grow as a human being and just be as helpful to myself and everyone around me as possible. And if I'm stuck in selfishness, there's no way for me to do that. So I think human connection is super important for recovery, because we isolate. We don't want to be around people. Obviously, the coronavirus has definitely left a lot of people isolated, and a lot of people die, not just from drug overdoses, but suicides too are through the roof. So human connection right now is more important than ever, and I think there's going to be a whole wave of people getting sober after coronavirus that will hopefully have that connection that they were so desperately needing over the past 8 months or so that we've been on crazy lockdowns and doing meetings over Zoom, and we get to actually experience their first real live in-person meeting, where like I feel like pre-corona time we were spoiled with the things that we got to do, and we got to be on conventions and committees and go into jails and prisons and institutions and bring meetings in, and they never experienced that. I think that's a missing piece for a lot of people, is that connection, that actual face-to-face, handshaking, hugging, human connection, and it's super important for recovery, in my opinion. It's probably one of the most important things. What my life is like now that I have a solid foundation in recovery. Life is good, man. I like to complain about life sometimes, but I don't have anything to complain about, you know? I mess a lot of things up in recovery, but I get the opportunity to clean those messes up and not run away and allow my piles to compound on top of each other until it becomes like this insurmountable task that I can just not achieve. You know, I go to work, I go home. If I have a meeting that night, I go to that meeting. I genuinely listen to my partner, you know, which is new for me, and I try and be there for my partner. Obviously, coronavirus is, my parents are older, so I haven't got to see them as much as I would like. But, you know, I've gone over there a few times. My niece is now 2.5. She's out talking, walking, learning all sorts of new stuff, and I get to be a part of that, you know. It took a long time for me to build that trust back with my family, you know. But my brother, who's also an addict, is sober again, and he's been struggling for about a year or so. And he's the one who introduced me to 12-step recovery, right? He moved to Australia for a year in a camper van, and his girlfriend was going to leave him halfway through the trip because he couldn't control his drinking. And that's where he had gone for like a DUI before, but that's like where he truly found 12-step recovery. So so like now I get to be there for him, which is a strange turn of events, and that happens sometimes in meetings, right? But I get to represent what recovery has done in my life in all aspects of my life. That's my career, my personal life, and my relationships, not just with my significant other, but with everybody. And I don't want to put a bad taste in anyone's mouth because they might think, oh, that's Max, he's in recovery and he's an asshole. So they think that that's what all people in recovery are like. So I have to try and remember that in the back of my mind, that I have to represent what recovery has done in my life and be a representation of that. Obviously, I'm a human and I make mistakes, right? But I have the tools today in order to, I won't say fix, but to the best of my ability, make things right. Some stuff you can't ever fix, right? But I can continue to live in a way that gears me towards being the human that I always wanted to be and dreamt that I always wanted to be. You know, my life looks nothing like I thought it would when I got sober. I thought if I had 5 years sober, I'd have a mansion and a big balling car and all that. But my life means so much more to me today, right? And I remember I was probably about 2 years sober, and my dad handed me a key to his house, and he said, and my brother was standing there, he handed us both keys. He said, my parents did not give me a key to their house. After getting sober, they didn't trust me, right? And then he started crying. He said, thank you guys for giving him, he thanked God for giving him his sons back. And like moments like that is really what shows me that like my life is pretty fucking awesome today, right? And I get to show up in people's lives, and I get to do a lot of cool stuff that would never be possible if I wasn't in recovery. And the foundation I always have to go back to, repeatedly, I have to continuously go back to my foundation, because sometimes I get so far drawn out into what's going on in my life that I forget like just how fragile this thing is that we have, and how grateful I need to be for the things that I do have in my life, you know? And it's mostly connection with people, and like people want to be around me today, and like my life's pretty boring from an outside perspective, but for me, man, my life is pretty amazing compared to what it was like. And my life looks nothing like it used to, you know? It consisted of just getting up, doing some dirt, whatever I had to do, fucking people over. And today it's just I get up, I go to work, I'm a contributing member of society, I pay my taxes, I'm able to hold a job for longer than a year, and I'm able to really grow. And what I've been working on, which has been a struggle for me, is having personal goals. Again, when you don't think you're going to make it past 21 or 25, you tend to not make goals for your life, right? So now I struggle with it because I've never done it, so I'm really learning what does making goals personally look like. What do I want my life to look like at 40 years old? Do I want to have a family? Do I not want to have a family? Do I want to own a home? That was not an option before, you know? And now that I have a foundation, literally anything is possible. I don't want to sound like a fairy tale, but literally, if I'm willing to put in enough action towards whatever goal I'm working towards, my life can be whatever I want it to be. And that's a crazy far cry from what it used to look like.